Today's show is focused on two items. Elon's 99 problems and DC ain't one is one of our titles. And the other is that Austin has actually begun production already. And so we wanted to cover both topics as well as possible today and look forward to introducing ideas that'll help with your better understanding where Tesla is currently. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you want terrific information that'll help you with your trading activities, I think you'll be impressed by some of the things we've come up with, and we'll share that with you a bit today. Also encourage you to like and subscribe. We're going to actually have a second show today focused on what the trading week looks like from our perspective. But something really crazy happened on Friday, which was that I sent our note. So if you're at least at the 125 level and above on Patreon, you actually get a note from us every day. And it turns out Thursday and Friday are reserved for our upper level Patreon supporters. And we actually put out part of our written show for Thursday morning with our folks was the fact that Tesla was going to drop from the 715-ish neighborhood down into the 705 area. And we had a lot of reasons behind that. And it actually occurred similar to what happened the previous week. We haven't really been publicizing how well we're doing in terms of calling where Tesla stock price is headed and why, but it was like a 300% return for those who heeded the warning that we gave prior to the open of market on Friday. So for those of you who are Patreon supporters, you may want to just try a month at the higher levels so you get the end of the week, because as we head into expiration, the analysis of the trading situation is a lot more lucrative end of the week than it might be perhaps at the beginning. So this allows us, we will get back to that kind of stuff in our second show for the day. But I wanted to cover two things today. First of all, Elon and the concept that 99 problems, but DC ain't one. Well, things are going along well in terms of the Biden administration introducing initiatives to emphasize EV or electric vehicles. This past week, as you know, there are a number of discussions going on that Elon was snubbed by not being invited to the White House for the summit to introduce sort of the clean energy EV initiatives. And I thought this is really kind of interesting because Elon has a thing going where, because he's basically running 4 or 5 companies, the time is allocated very carefully between each firm. So deleting a 5-hour trip to DC and back into Austin or into California, and the time that would take and the impact it would have on all the initiatives that he's working on, actually saved him a bunch of time. I do think that this is going to actually be happening again, perhaps multiple times, because Tesla is in an interesting position where not only are they non-union, but they also have an issue with job destruction. The one entity thus far that's introduced us to the power of destruction that Tesla is bringing about is actually Mercedes. According to them, between Mercedes and the suppliers to Mercedes, there have been 100,000 jobs lost globally as Tesla has emerged in this space. And, how, why, et cetera. Well, one of the many ways to think about this is any job in the auto industry has a 7-to-1 ratio. So if somebody works for one of the big brands, there are 7 jobs, be it where they go to eat, their dry cleaner, their doctors. There are all these individuals affected by each sale of an ICE vehicle. Another item to think about is that ICE vehicles have, on average, 2,000 parts, and more than 2,000 parts. So now we have this other issue of the parts suppliers are getting hit by the reduction in demand created by Tesla, as well as the OEMs that buy those parts and put them together in cars. So there's a double or triple whammy reasoning as to why Tesla is somewhat public enemy number one for a lot of unions and other organizations that rely on job creation and retention at the major auto companies. And they do have the power to influence, what that White House might do relative to different entities. We've kind of already seen this going on in terms of how difficult it is to buy Teslas in certain regions, as the dealers have been able to flex their muscles and get legislatures to limit how Tesla vehicles are built and serviced. And so this is not an unknown zone. I was just surprised that the Tesla hate isn't, at an apex, because, we've gotten used to it over time. So it seems like kind of it's pretty standard operating procedure. So literally, the problem for Elon is that with all the problems he's having to solve in terms of getting the 2 new factories up, among many issues going on, I don't actually think that it's going to have any influence on him or the company, but it seems to be that there's a hunt for any kind of news that we can deal with that goes on in this arena. Also wanted to encourage you, if you rely on going to malls to see Tesla, we talked about this 2 years ago, where Tesla needed the mall presence as a way to publicize EVs and Tesla so customers knew who they were. As we discussed, we kind of put out a story about 2.5 years ago where we recommended to Tesla to get rid of all the mall locations, because replacing them with service centers that both sell and repair cars was a better use of the big numbers that are required to be in those facilities. And Elon, soon after we announced this idea, a couple of months later, announced this is what they were going to do. And they immediately got pushback from all the malls, given that they rely on Tesla's traffic and they had long-term contracts for Tesla's presence in those malls. So right now, with COVID's impact, there are a lot of malls still not happy as Tesla pulls out. But I didn't think it was a big story, because Elon announced he would do this 2 years ago, but it seemed to have roamed back into the story highlights for the week. So the last sort of section of what I wanted to cover today is what's going on in Austin. And I was very surprised. A friend of the show from Tesla and I had a conversation about kind of, well, where is Tesla currently? And in particular, what's going on with the Giga Press and its debut in Austin. So the answer we got, I was very, very surprised by. There's been a lot of news reports of Tesla starting with the first vehicle that's going to be put out next week as a tester vehicle for Tesla. And what we found out is that the test vehicles for Tesla have been running out of the factory in Austin for the last at least month, possibly longer. What's going on is that the process is that the Giga Press will produce the front and back side of the car. Those two parts then are placed to the side, and then robots actually marry the skateboard bottom and sort of roof of the vehicle, and that's brought together by robots. So basically, robots bringing together much of the car is what they've been working on. So the vehicles that are currently coming off and will next week, as we've discussed, are labeled test vehicles. Now, is that a big deal? Well, guess what? There were 40,000 test vehicles that were being built in China prior to allowed sales on January 15th. And those test vehicles, once they were allowed in China, all of a sudden were recategorized as valid and good vehicles for sale. So we thought this was kind of interesting that we would have the test label being applied to tens of vehicles currently, but we think that number is going to rise into the hundreds of vehicles over the next 2 months. There is an effort to make sure the quality is in line to what customer specs should be. And once those goals are met, all those vehicles that may be considered test vehicles right now will actually be out for being sold in many places. So I was actually very pleased to hear kind of what was going on with this. And I was kind of surprised to learn that they were running very low volume of vehicles out of this facility already, because it seems to be somewhat secretive. They are doing some stockpiling of the limited numbers that they're producing and going through them carefully to determine how to update machinery, et cetera, to make sure the quality meets what it needs to in order to sell those vehicles. We don't have any, at this point, the 2170 has been what Elon said would sit in those vehicles until the 4680 is ready. So that's the battery pack we believe that's being used. And where are they coming from? Our guess is actually still coming from Nevada, but ramping production of batteries is also part of what's supposed to be happening in Austin currently, as well as in Germany. So I want to say congratulations to Tesla for starting in Austin, even at low numbers. And we look forward to that ramp being rapidly happening as we enter the September-October timeframe. I'm also pleased because, from what we're hearing, we definitely have 200 to 500 vehicles that'll be produced. And by the time we get to the end of the quarter, which would be October 1, it's believed, or actually for this quarter would be end of August, with I believe earnings coming out late September. But to have added production or deliverable production coming from these plants adds thousands of cars that can be added to profit and revenue for the current quarter. So I think that all this is pretty exciting. I would have to say that I do have some concerns about what I've seen. In particular, we saw a fire inside of the Giga Press in Fremont, and I guess my mental image of things is that, well, what do you do if the Giga Press doesn't work in terms of what it's supposed to do, or it catches on fire? There are two that are in Austin, but we're also told that the big reason why Elon went to this is that you can actually produce 3 cars in the same time frame of what had been just 1 car as this Giga Press is put into full speed production. So I think, this is big news. I also think it's big news because this discussion was sort of suppressed during the pin for this week. But I believe over the next 2 weeks, we'll start seeing more vehicles coming from that facility. And it's going to be acknowledged that there won't be a lot of delays that will hold this up from adding to production and profit for the quarter for Tesla in both Germany and in Austin. So we think this is awesome news. Congratulations to the folks at Tesla for getting this done. And let's all keep our fingers crossed that we won't have any huge sort of blow-ups or fires related to the I saw the number 8,000 degrees cooling down to 400 degrees for the parts that are being made in this giant press. And I have to say, wow, that's a lot of heat and a lot of potential for issues to pop up as these machines are pumping out parts. But there's a good reason to use them. And I think it'll make the company more profitable, more successful over time. So we look forward to that. We're also looking forward to what happens with the bigger press that comes out to do 1 stamp for the parts for the Cybertruck. So we shall keep you posted on this. If in fact we're hearing that more than 25 to 50 cars a week, heading for multiple hundreds a week, start coming out, 1,000 units is a significant revenue hit at $60,000 dollars per vehicle. That's $60 million. So our I guess, optimistic forecast is we're going to see around 1,000 vehicles every 10 days coming out of that facility. And once we ramp to the 5,000 initial level, approximately, obviously the numeric impact is going to be far greater. So we hope it happens sooner than later. And obviously they maintain the quality that's necessary to appease customers as well. Final note is that there is some impact in terms of vehicles waiting on chips, and that Tesla's experiencing, and they're having to do some workarounds to get this done. But we're hopeful that Elon's able to minimize this with some of the techniques that he's been using to repurpose chips that might have been used elsewhere. At any rate, again, congratulations to Tesla on getting Austin open, and soon Germany as well. And, hopefully Elon can find enough sleep to stay on top of everything that he's working on right now, because there are some very big initiatives that are influence the company greatly. So I wanted to note there are a bunch of people that are not happy about me plucking the string. We also want to note that, again, there's a copyright notice on this video. Anything said, you're not authorized to use it without permission, so please don't, so you don't get your channel shut down. We also want to encourage you to like and subscribe. At this part of the show, we usually do our health tips. Just a reminder to get out into nature. It's called forest bathing. I wanted to encourage you to do it because you'll feel better if you do so. Also wanted to highly encourage you to consider core training of some sort on a daily basis with stretching, because for me it's been wonderful, and I highly recommend you consider this as well. And then finally, prior to lovemaking, please take time to have just a small salad. This will facilitate your ability to have less blood flow to your stomach and more to other extremities, so you can enjoy that activity more fully in the process. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Salam, lahitrot, khoda hafez, zdravstvuyte, Russian, konbanwa, Japanese, namaste, Hindi, bonjour, French, lahitrot, Hebrew, khoda hafez, Farsi, hey do, our friends in Sweden, g'day, our friends in Australia, and in Jamaica we say nuff respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to constructive criticism, and we're definitely working on show improvement, including sound, etc., on a regular basis, and look forward to just pleasant interaction for better channel, better information being shared rather than craziness. Thanks for taking time out. Have a great day, and bye for now.